I can't believe how popular my post last week of Pinterest recipes was. Like, that's crazy. You guys are the best. Alright, but for real, this week we have something great. As you know, I go to the University of Cincinnati, but I had to take intermediate English comp, and I thought it would be a nightmare, but it's alright. I'm going to tell you how to survive. You just need to know what I did, and then you'll be good. Let's get down to business. First, we had these things like blog posts that he had us do. It was actually alright. I liked it because each week it was something different, and you didn't have to write a ton. And we were able to just do like 15 lines and like get an A. It was just a little blurb, but as long as you like said your opinion, it mattered. And so I was like, this is awesome. Like, I get to say my opinions and people comment on them. So those were great. They were my favorite. Like, there were some that were more academic than others. Like, okay, so I had, like, what's your favorite music? And obviously you're going to be like, this is my opinion. But then it was like, what's the similarities and differences between two different music critics? And it's obvious there's an answer. There's a right and wrong answer there. So that was a little more formal, but I wouldn't say any of it was academic. Like, you don't need to work cited for the blog post. So I loved it. Loved it. Then we had, so that was like, that went on throughout the entire semester. You had a blog post like every week, like now from the beginning to end. There was like, our first part was a research process. And we had to pick an artist, song, genre, whatever, which was really cool because all of our papers coincided with each other instead of just like, here's a paper on tree frogs. Here's a paper on gun control. You know what I mean? So it was really cool. So I picked an artist, and the research process was different than the other ones because the research, obviously you're researching things that have already been written. So they're already been written and they're meant for an audience. So since they're meant for someone else, you don't really get to say what they're about, you know? So for the research, it was mainly just news pieces and think pieces, like different news articles about like my artist's death and different scandals that she does. And then there were a lot of news pieces, think pieces trying to figure out like who she is and why she is the way she is. And then there was like even like YouTube comments were considered research. We could go to Wikipedia and YouTube, and it was part of the discourse, and discourse is like, it pretty much means conversation. So in this class, we studied the discourse surrounding the genre artist that we picked, and that was what we researched. So like when we were researching the person, everything that came up was a part of the discourse. I know, right? Like, mind blown. But anyways, so I was researching all of these things, and obviously all of the articles were written towards people who already knew the artist, so that was cool. But then we had to write other papers. We had to write, all the papers were annotated bibliography, which is just like write out different sources from your research. So it was just like, do your research and this is how you did it and what did you think about it. So like guided research paper. And then we had our genre analysis, which was just teaching you how to analyze a genre, like news pieces, and this is what you look for in a news piece. Then our discourse analysis, which was like the whole big thing, like the whole entire thing surrounding when you searched it, that discourse, like, yeah. And then the praxis. So the praxis was really cool because it was more similar to my research because I was able to take and mimic the type of tone and rhetorical devices that they used and put it into my paper. So like some different articles, like obviously like a news piece is more formal, like rigid. The tone is a little like less biased, but obviously everyone has their opinion. Even news pieces, I found out, like girls, news pieces the news, like, they all have an agenda. Like, they're not, they're trying to get you to believe what they believe. And they'll, like, present different information in ways that you, like, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's cool. But they're just doing that to get you to think that's cool, so then you believe their opinion. Yeah. Don't fall victim to it. Now you know. You're welcome. All right. But anyways, so yeah. So my praxis, I was able to, like, create my tone, which is kind of sarcastic, kind of witty, like Pitchfork and Rolling Stone. And then but then we had to do all those other papers that I mentioned, and those were more academic, so it was really, like, you couldn't be opinionated. You can't be like, oh, I love her, she's the best, because no. It was very, like, rigid, to the point, here's the facts, here's what, it was more about the author's opinion, actually. So it was just you talking about the author's opinion and how the author manipulated his writing to get you to try and get you to believe what he believes. So some were more successful than others, obviously, but it was just a lot of talking about how people did things to get you to believe what they believe instead of saying what you believe. So that's why I like the blog posts and the praxis and the research the most, because I got to pick what I believed and say what I believed, which was awesome. So for my genre analysis and discourse, I chose, wait for it, Amy Winehouse. She's the best. She's my girl. But rest in peace. But anyways, so I chose Amy Winehouse because when she died, there was, like, a lot of scandal. I didn't really know her. I mean, I was 16, so it was, like, when her stuff was really big, I was in elementary school, middle school, and then, like, she kind of laid low, and then, yeah. So I didn't really, like, know much about her, and then in the summer, like, this summer, like, between, like, when I was 19, I was, like, oh my god, Amy Winehouse. Like, I was like, whoa! So I went in, I was reading it, and I found her so fascinating, guys. She's really such a deep person. It's incredible. You have to look at the stuff out there because it's just, you can't. I can't even. Anyways, so I dug deeper into the issues, like, about Amy Winehouse and her life and everything. And yeah. But then I started looking into it, and it was like, oh my god, like, media is just attacking celebrities. Like, they're not even people to the media. They're just animals that they can whip and just take for, like, granted and just use as money makers after every, like, scandal, and then just kick them to the curb. It was happening with everyone. I only thought it happened to Lindsay Lohan, but apparently not. And I was like, I need to talk about this. I need to share my opinion and findings with the world because they deserve to know. So I created this Pitchfork article kind of thing. It's like Amy Winehouse murdered by modern media. Catchy, like, you'll read that. I would read that. I read that. So, like, aesthetically, I put a bunch of, like, advertisements. I made, like, a little mailing list because you want to stay in the loop. And all of my photos of Amy are beautiful because I want the world to see her in the beautiful light that she is and not in the ugly light that, like, media painted her in, because she's a beautiful individual and she should be honored, not trashed. I talk about different ways that Amy is portrayed in her albums and how, like, Frank is this kind of, like, it's, like, witty and kind of sarcastic and kind of, like, she's got this cool girl jazz vibe that nobody was doing, so she really kind of picked that up and ran with it. It was really cool. And then Back to Black, like, she made it, like, mocking the person that, like, everyone knew in the media. So it was like, yeah, you guys really should, like, back off my shit. Ooh, excuse me. Anyways, yeah, so she was just like, really crazy in Back to Black, and everyone thought that was really who she was, but it's not. And then Lioness was released in 2011 after she died, and it's kind of like a tribute to her, but not. It's like weird. It's like a bunch of unreleased tracks and stuff, and yeah, it's like Amy, but it's like too innocent and too sweet and too polite. It's kind of like her producer's last attempt at making like her image good. So that was a bummer. But anyway, so like there's like 3 different Amy's that we know from these different albums, and then each one the media took and like inflated and made her so much like a caricature of who this. It was like a caricature of a caricature, because it was literally like Amy taking herself and making herself like this character, and then the media just came and like made a caricature of that caricature, like of that character. So it was like, who's Amy? Who's the real Amy? And like Amy then is being like bombarded with all of this like these attacks, and it's like, no, you can't do that. This isn't the first time that media did that. Like, they did it to Marilyn Monroe, Janis Joplin, like, Karen Carpenter even experienced it, and they weren't even, like, abusing her the way that they abused the others. It's just crazy the way that, like, women are attacked in media, and it happened to others, like, Kurt Cobain, he wasn't attacked, but this poor guy, he didn't want to be famous, and the media forced him to be famous. And then he's like, this isn't me. I don't want this. And they're like, no, you're going to have it. And then he killed himself. So there's that. It's just like media makes these people into things they're not, and then these people aren't themselves, they aren't happy, and terrible things happen. Justin Bieber, not my fave, but he even just quoted that he says, I watched the Amy Winehouse documentary, Amy, on the plane, and I had tears in my eyes because I could see what the media was doing to her and how they were treating her. People thought it was funny to poke her until she was at rock bottom, to keep pushing her down until she had no more of herself. And that's what they were trying to do to me. Justin Bieber was being, like, manipulated into becoming someone who he wasn't. And it was like, there was no more Amy Winehouse left. The media took Amy Winehouse and made it a character, not a human being. And so, like, I just talk about that in my art, like, my praxis, and it's like media still mocks and manipulates people into being things they aren't, and it's just horrible. It is deplorable. So that was that, and I really hope that a lot of people read it, so share it with your friends. But anyways, it's serious what media is doing, and if I didn't have this class in research, like, it would have just stopped there. So we need to continue analyzing the motives of other people and realize, what are our motives? Like, how do they match? How don't they match? So girls, you can be independent-minded, because seriously, they don't want us to have our own thoughts and opinions. And I realize that now. So we need to start questioning, like, why is that person doing that? Why is the media publishing that? So we can think like, oh, they want us to think this, but do I actually think that? The answer may be no. Well, anyways, that's all for tonight's little blurb from Natalie. But next week, we have something really exciting by teaching you how you can make new candles from the leftover wax inside these. Well, anyways, bye!